But yeah, we are 11 of this February 2025. I just wanted to put this out there in English. I haven't been able to practice this language, and I think that it's a good opportunity, right? Today night, make a little bit of an stream with in English specifically, and I guess that it's been a while since I did a English stream. So yeah, I think it's always a good thing to do it in English because it's a little bit more how do I say it, more it's a language that many more people know and understand. Maybe Spanish, some people understand it, but not as much as English, although Spanish of course is not a language in the world that is not that unpopular, right? I think Spanish is defeating English in the sense of how many people talks this language and overall. But it's something of statistics, statistics, and yeah, well, whatever. It's 11 of February at Tuesday, 10:20 p.m. early night. It's not a weekend; it's a weekday. 10:20, and I'm looking at the I've been watching I've been following up what people say in Mexico about something that is very relevant for Mexico specifically. Regarding the designation as of the cartels as terrorist organizations. Well, here in Mexico, there's a lot of disinformation and misinformation. And there's too much lies in the media, too much lies in the politics. In politics, there is too much disinfo and misinformation, and they level down many situations happening with this subject. They try to minimize all what's going on, say nah, there's no big deal, and try to minimize all the seriousness of all this issue, and it's not it doesn't look well for Mexicans, for us as Mexicans. That doesn't look good. We don't like when governments try to deny or minimize serious problems, and apparently that's what's happening with this. And they have been minimizing and try to level down all these situations happening with the United States Army monitoring the border, and some planes even getting close to gather more information about these terrorists. And the government is just leveling down all the narrative. It's no big deal, that's something normal. Just as today, today, after all these weeks, a week, almost a complete week, seeing these American planes gathering information, the Mexican government is finally accepting publicly what everyone knows, that the United States is coming strong against these terrorists. That even many Mexicans in Mexico, we don't like them. We are tired of all this this violence and deaths and many insecurity and many this situation that only puts people's life at stake. Even Mexican civilians, kids. We have been seeing kids dying in these gunshots from these criminals, these terrorists, and we have seen even protests from people that are tired that their governors don't do anything to guarantee the safety of their people. They just don't care, or maybe they're part of the problem. They're colluded with criminals. And in Sinaloa is bad, and many other states in Mexico are not okay. And it's very frustrating when government officials try to minimize or level down all the seriousness of the situation happening. And I just want it is really I don't know. I just something is very off about all that. Trying to take something serious and trying to minimize what's going on is always a bad sign. And I don't know why they try to deny reality when it's up for everyone to see reality. But many people try to level down, to fool, to mislead, to deny the reality, and it's not helping Mexico to really fix all these internal problems that are affecting other countries as well. That is an international problem, has become a really serious international problem at the global scale. And finally, I think that Mexico is starting to recognize that this type of pressure from the outside is also positive to finally fix and destroy all these criminal organizations that behave sometimes like complete terrorists. There's no other word to describe what sometimes these people do. And well, I think that I've been following up this in the news, because for Mexican people, that many victims of all these criminal organizations are many people in Mexico, of course, is interested in finally having this problem fixed, these criminals behind bars and off the streets and off the country. I think many people doesn't even want them in the country because they're only making bad publicity for Mexico at the international level. And there are many people in Mexico that have suffered in the hands of these criminals, and I guess that many of those people are very interested in to follow up these developments of what is going on with these criminal organizations. And many people are even kind of having their hope increased when they see that if Mexican government doesn't do much to solve the problem, or haven't been doing much in the past decades, and now is starting to wake up and trying to do anything or something. I think many people I think that many people regain some of their hope that was completely shattered with all the violence that has been surrounding this country for many years now. And for me, it was very interesting, and it gave me a bad sign, a bad vibe, to see many politicians trying to minimize this problem, to say no, try to simulate, to say lies, to mislead the public with disinformation and this situation that is very very serious and should be very treated very very seriously, and should be addressed in a very serious way. And sometimes we don't see that, we don't see the government officials doing it with that seriousness that it should be, with that seriousness that is needed to address these issues, this problem, this big problem. But I don't know, and it's very interesting, the denial of many situations. No, this didn't happen like that. The denial of reality. Sometimes I don't understand it. Why many politicians, not only in Mexico but in other parts of the world, many politicians go to the denial of reality. Sometimes I remember the past president, they used to say, "I have another data. Now, according to my data, it's different," and he even laughed about it. I mean, it was insulting. And I have been following up this development, and in Mexico there has been a lot of the news has been talking about this a lot, even in the social media and in X, in Facebook. Many people is talking about this in Mexico, and it's interesting how the media, some media outlets in Mexico, and some politicians try to deny this reality or try to minimize it. No, it's something normal that happens every year, and it's very interesting, that response. I don't know, I sometimes give me bad vibes, the signal that they send to everyone, even us in Mexico. And it's very interesting, this development, because I think it's a game changer in terms of regional security for America, because this problem, of course, involves other countries. Of course, I mean, there's a lot of talking about this, and of course, people is talking about this other country and the other country, and like I say, why? The reality is that there are many countries involved with this problem, having suffering from these criminal organizations, not only in Mexico but in other places. That's a reality that many people know. And of course, we have the possibility of Canada having a toll in all this. Of course, they have been news in Spain that talks about some police chiefs that have been detained and arrested because they cooperate with these criminal organizations from Mexico. We have some talks about China and many other countries that might have been involved in all this madness. And of course, it's a global problem, and of course, it is a regional problem from North America and maybe Central America. And finally, the United States is doing acting accordingly. I think acting accordingly to the threat, not only for the United States but for Mexico as well, and from other countries that have suffered in the hands of these criminals. And yeah, I have seen people in Mexico, of course, that have suffered in the hands of these criminals. And one of these type of situations that I can remember right now from memory is what happened, for example, in Las Aguilillas, no? The county of Las Aguilillas in Michoacán, Mexico, where the criminals take all the properties from their people, and many of those people had to flee to the United States to ask for asylum, political asylum, because they feared for their lives, no? And this was, I think, was 1 or 2 years, 2023, 2024, something like that. Of course, that is just only a small part of all the madness that this type of criminal organizations create in a population, in civil society, with innocent people. And of course, it's a very big problem. And seeing this type of reports in the news. Well, of course, CNN doesn't have that much credibility, but, of course, it's not the only media that talks about this. And here they're talking about the U.S. spy planes hunt for intel on Mexican drug cartels as surveillance flights surge near border. And it says right here, the U.S. military has significantly increased its surveillance of Mexican drug cartels over the past 2 weeks, with sophisticated spy planes flying at least 18 missions over the southwestern U.S. and the international airspace around Baja Peninsula, according to open source data and 3 U.S. officials familiar with the missions. And I don't know, I think in Mexico some people are okay with this, other people are not okay with this, but I think that it is mostly needed. My opinion is that this is needed because of the seriousness of this issue. Is something that it is needed. And of course they are making these operations, and CNN talks about these flights conducted over a 10-day period in late January and early February represent a dramatic escalation in activity. Current and former military officials say, and come as President Donald Trump directs the military to secure the border and deter cartels and drug smuggling operations. Yeah, I think it's needed. I think this is needed, and despite Mexico being gaslighting people about this, it's not happening, and this is not something very normal and has happened for many years, and trying to minimize, to say that it is it's not a big deal, they almost say it's not a big deal every day, this is normal. But this denial of reality is insane sometimes. And well, here it is now, a little bit of what is going on with all these operations from the United States that I think that are actually needed, because it's wild. This situation is wild. So yeah, there are a lot of operations right here, that you can see. And it says here at least 11 of these recent flights around the U.S. have been by Navy P-8S, a particularly priced plane with a sophisticated radar system that specializes in identifying submarines, but is also capable of collecting imagery and signals intelligence. One nearly 6-hour flight on February 3rd was conducted by a U-2 spy plane, one of the U.S. military's most venerated reconnaissance aircraft, designated during the Cold War for collecting high-altitude imagery of the Soviet Union. Current and former military officials with deep experience in counter-narcotics work on the border said they could not recall a U-2 being used for this purpose before. I really think some of this is actually important to finally address this big issue that has escalated over the period of decades. I mean, it is a problem that was not well addressed over a big period of, I think, decades now, and it has become a very unsustainable problem for many, of course, North American region, but other countries as well in other parts of the world. And I think it escalated to a major problem, and I think the designation was precise and needed. That's the word, needed. And yeah, it's a very big problem, and it's very many people in Mexico are exhausted to live in a place where you don't feel safe. That's the word. You don't are when you are not, you cannot thrive the way you want, because you have to face with the criminals that make extortions and bribery, and they threaten many people if they don't cooperate with, in many situations, you know. It's very complicated, and I think this is a very needed way to address this problem, to solve this big problem that does not only affect the United States but of course Mexico in many ways. So yeah, this is a statement from, I don't know who is this statement. I don't hear. Current and former U.S. officials see clear effort to shift more responsibility for America's counter-narcotics missions to the military, which has decades of experience fighting other non-state terrorist groups around the globe that have some operational similarities to the cartels. I think the cartels will be foolish to take on the military, but we know they've taken on the Mexican military before. But now we have the United States military. Borders are, Tom Homan told ABC News on Thursday. Do I expect violence to escalate? Absolutely, because the cartels are making record amounts of money. Well, this is the part of the issue. So, yeah, this is it. I mean, it's not everyone can see this, and I think it's the same person, the same official, Tom Homan, who says this. Yes, parts of the state collude with cartels, but there are other resisting, and we need them. And Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, most of all, to work with us. Will Freeman, a fellow for Latin America Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations, wrote in a recent essay in the New York Times. Yeah, well, it's a very interesting development, all these situations, and many Mexican people as well want these criminal organizations out of Mexico, because many people have suffered from this, and it's very interesting to see that it might even be using the U2 spy plane, and regardless that Mexican authorities might try to minimize all this happening, or try to say that it's no big deal, all these movements from planes. Well, it's interesting to see these developments and how this is going to change the face of this problem for Mexico and other countries, and even for the Mexican citizens and the United States citizens that finally can live without this fear or this issue, this problem, this insecurity to going out to the streets to have a normal life, because all these criminals are affecting people's lives. And I think this is going to be very, very interesting, and I think this is going to be a real possibility to finally solve this very ugly problem for in many ways. And yeah, of course, this is a very complex problem, and many people are actually talking about this. And I'm seeing many news reports, many analysis that are actually putting in the front of the cover of the magazines or of the reports or of their analysis. They're putting the U2 spy plane, and I think this is a very game changer, to be honest, to finally be able to go after these criminals and stop their operations from affecting and destroying people's lives, and many bad situations happening as a result from these criminal organizations that are now designated as terrorists. and I think this is going to really have a very powerful effect, important impact on these organizations, because this has never been done before, and I think this is the way appropriate way to address this problem. And I don't know, I think it's only starting, it's only a few weeks, and I think we might, even as just as 2 3 weeks, we are already seeing some developments, even in Mexico, inside Mexico. And yeah, I think many people in Mexico, we are realizing that if in Mexico doesn't want to fix this issue, maybe we need this pressure to actually finally have some real results. But I know time will tell. Time will tell. Time will tell. And yeah, it's very interesting how many people are pointing to different points of view of all this. And yeah, like I said, the United States is finally shifting exactly like this. Like I said, shifting finite use national security capabilities away from overseas threats to focus on the southern border. And I think this problem, I think this was needed a few years back, maybe. But we will see. And like this is an interesting point of view. America's finite resources were typically applied towards surveying other higher priority international subjects such as Russia or China. Of particular interest was Russian movements in Ukraine or the movements of Russian and Chinese submarines. But now those resources are now applied into this part of the world. This Trump shift from international issues to domestic issues is consistent with promises the president made along the campaign trail. Trump promised to end and avoid forever wars, stem illegal immigration and the flow of fentanyl across the U.S.-Mexico border, and to generally put America first. The surveillance flights, along with the deployment of active duty troops to the US-Mexico border, seem to be early examples of Trump recalibrating the federal government's resources to uphold his campaign promises. There were 3 events that actually caught the attention of Mexican media. That was these three, but they all tried to say that it's not a big deal. They're exaggerating and so far so on. But of course, it's not big. Of course, it's not what they say. Is the first movements of a new shifting in this security focus from the United States, and I think this is going to finally be able to change this problem and increase Mexico and the United States and Canada and the region in terms of security, and in terms of all these substances, and even the face of the societies may be changed, because they probably this drug consumption is going to go down in the statistics, because many people are going to stop taking drugs, because there are not going to be any more labs and all these situations happening in Mexico, for example, and etc. And yeah, I mean, it's very interesting, and yeah, it's very interesting to see the U-2 plane, right? Because it's a very legendary plane that was used to gather information in the Cold War, during the Cold War, and it's very interesting seeing it in action again, and seeing it much closer to home because back in the day I was not even born when this was happening in Russia and the United States, and it was over Russia. But now they're talking that this plane is active again. It's very interesting to see that plane in action. I don't know, many uh, aviation enthusiasts will find that a little bit of a cool news, a cool data that is going on. And that this legendary plane, is active again. Yeah, it's. I think many people in Mexico, some people, especially the people that have been victims from all these terrorist organizations in one or another way, or have seen this violence from close, their home, close to their homes, in their neighborhoods and in the communities and all this stuff. I think many of those people maybe don't say it, but I think they find a sense of hope uh, uh, in these operations by the United States, because I think they sense that finally this is going to be having a possibility. Is having they're having a possibility. Their hopes a little bit renewed that this problem is going to finally be addressed in a serious way, and not in a simulated way, but a serious way, a real way that can actually change things for the better in terms of security and less violence, and less problems. And yeah, of course, like you say, this have engaged in campaign of violence and terror throughout the Western Hemisphere that has not only destabilized countries with significant importance for national interests, but also flooded the United States with deadly drugs, violent criminals, and vicious gangs. That's the word, vicious. An executive order signed by the president on the aggression date reads, like he says, the cartels functionally controlled through the campaign of assassination, terror, rape, and brute force nearly all illegal traffic across the southern border of the United States. And yeah, like decisive action to stop the crisis. Nobody's laughing any longer. Yes, it was a very problem, a real problem, and many people that we have seen, these criminals, these terrorists, uh, uh, with the violence that they impose on the communities, is awful to see, and it is something very very sad to see, and I agree. Sometimes it's sad to see that the Mexican authorities are not able to finally end with this big problem that for even for Mexico. And I found some very very interesting analysis. For example, this report, American Partisan Vanguard Movement of Western Civilization, talks about what happened in the. They deny it and say no. They almost say in the Mexican authorities, they almost went as far as to say that it was not Mexico, that part where the plane fled, and they were this close to say that the night that was even Mexico, and there was a different map. There was some mistake or some. The denial of all these operations is almost insane sometimes. And it says, yeah, I mean, I could easily put here a Twitter where they they even have had a Twitter account that debunks, apparently, allegedly debunks fake news, and they said that operation was fake news. And it's funny to see, but that's no joke. I mean, the government has an account to debunk fake news, and they deny this operation, and it's almost ridiculous to be honest. But they actually put it like several days. They were denying and denying and denying and denying, and it's almost insane to see, the level of denial from some people. But, yeah, in this, let me see if I can put it here, so it is visible for everyone. But yeah, it is almost unbelievable, to be honest, to see the level of some denial. And this is the page where they say fake or falso, and I was surprised to see that they denied for several days in a row the operation by the United States, and you have it right here. They denied, they denied the operation. They actually denied the almost denied that it was Mexico, the country that appeared in the map. I mean, they literally almost denied that the country that the plane flew was Mexico. No, that's not that's not Mexico. This close they were from denying that it was even Mexico. It's funny to see sometimes this situation. The denial of reality sometimes is funny, and I don't think this should be taken lightly. But apparently it's falso or fake. Apparently, and it's actually kind of funny when I see that. It was kind of hilarious to see, but there is there it is. They try to debunk it. Apparently, debunk it as a fake news or something that didn't. I must say they say that it didn't happen. But yeah, well, this is the report of the U.S. Air Force's plane run SIGINT operation near Cabo as U.S. preps for potential cartel fights. And yeah, this is the report. Here it is, several open source intelligence. This is the name of the plane, RC-135B/W, Rivet Joint Reconnaissance aircraft, and might have conducted a SIGINT operation over the southern of half of Baja California. And well, this is the report where this flight actually happened. Of course, there is a lot of evidence when you try to track a plane. Of course, you see many details. You can actually confirm when a plane is flying, and yeah. So this is it. Of course, there's a lot of information that actually confirms the flight path that the plane took. Everything is confirmed with data, official data, real-time data, even sometimes it's real-time data. So this plane, Rivet Joint, is the USAF premier SIGINT aircraft designed to intercept, identify, and analyze enemy communications and electronic signals. And yeah, there is all this information regarding this flight that happened, and yeah, that's part of all this shifting from the United States in their security priorities, and instead of being overseas, I think that we're going to be seeing them very closely here in Mexico. And for many Mexicans that we have seen all this violence, all this terrorism from these cartels in close, it's good news, because it's clear that Mexican government is not or does not want or is unable to. One of those two. There's no other, or doesn't want to because he's colluded, or he's not able. So I don't think there is many more um, explanations of why Mexico haven't been able to eliminate all these cartels by themselves, by yourselves in Mexico. OSINT says here 6 days ago, OSINT tracking US spy planes surveilling the Mexican cartels. Yeah, there are many people that is actually tracking these planes and reporting on them, because even for the United States, I think they are seeing this as something good. Even the Americans, of course, in Mexico, some people in Mexico, we see this as an opportunity to finally uh, be able to have an extra assistance, a stronger hand to deal with this big problem. And there's a lot of information, like I said. Even if they try to deny the flight, this plane and this flight path and all this travel that it did, it happened. They cannot deny it, even if they say that it is fake or false. And they say that this was not Mexican airspace, some some nonsense like that. But you can have all this information tracking from all these flights, and even if the Mexican government tries to say that it's not a big deal, of course it's a good sign that it is some new times ahead are coming, brighter than we have already seen. Because this problem does not only affect the United States, Canada, but Mexico as well, of course, and even other countries as far as Spain. Or some people even say that in Italy and other countries, these situations is happening. With these organizations, it's almost crazy. But some people, some reporters, investigative reporters, talk about as far as those lands, this problem reaches even overseas as well. So there are many people that are enthusiasts. There are many enthusiasts that are talking about this, analyzing all this, and I think this is a proper response to address this issue and to push back to these terrorist organizations with the same level of pressure, so they can leave all the innocent people alone, and let innocent civilians be and happy and live their lives without fear. And I think this is going to give results very quickly. We are already seeing some people reacting in Mexico, and I think this is in the long term, even in medium term, like 2 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, is going to be a very different scenario for all North America if these operations continue until all these terrorist organizations are completely dismantled. I think there is a very 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 good chance that the next years, maybe 5 years, maybe in the range of maybe 5 years, 5 years probably, we are going to be seeing a different perspective in all this. Yeah, there are some very interesting analysis of all this. And even if in Mexico, because even in Mexico, some people say in Mexico, even some politicians, some journalists say that this is exclusively Trump's idea, and some people say this is fairly new. This is fairly new. Is something that doesn't have some time background, and of course there are analyses that have been made even as far back as July 2023, where they talk about all this and how all this comes from a long time ago. This is not new. Of course, many people in many United States, in the parts of the United States government, in the Republican Party, and maybe even some from the Democrat Party, have already been talking about designating the cartels as terrorist organizations from maybe decades, maybe a few years back, maybe a decade probably, without exaggerating. Of course, maybe a decade, as far back as a decade, possibly. And of course, this is not exclusively Trump idea. This is a more generalized idea in the United States, and even in. I sometimes even myself wonder, and I'm even myself I am kind of shocked to realize that Mexican government didn't do this a long time back. Designating them as terrorists a long, maybe 3 decades back. I think the Mexican authorities should have designated the cartels as terrorist organizations at least since the 90s, at least. And sometimes I am very shocked that Mexican authorities didn't do this in time, because these explosions and these gunshots in the streets where even innocent people die in airports, even priests that were murdered in the streets, happened as far as in the 90s in Mexico. And I am shocked to realize that Mexico has not declared or designated cartels as terrorist organizations since the 90s, because all this terror started as far back as maybe the 90s, in the mid 90s, 94, 95, something like that. And we have even the one of the presidential candidates that had an issue, that was shot. I don't know why Mexican didn't do something like that decades ago. To be honest, decades ago. But it's some of those things. Is one of those things that you just cannot believe, and I cannot believe that Mexican authorities have not done this, have not taken this decision, and I can only wonder why. Because of course, it is no secret of the influence that these organizations have in this country, but it is shocking to think about it, to actually think about it. And yes, of course, in this report, July 12th, 2023, they already are speaking about how this was on the table. Even I say without exaggerating. I think I'm not exaggerating if I say that maybe a decade ago, this decision was discussed in the United States. But I don't know. This is a very interesting analysis. I'm not gonna read everything here. It's gonna take too much time. But it is the defense scoop. Defense scoop. This is like an institution that analyzes so many cyber and other type of security teams or subjects, or whatever you want to say it. Yeah, well, this is a very interesting defense scoop. And the Senate panel wants to greenlight to use military cyber ops against Mexican cartels. And of course, not only the designation of terrorists, but this as well, the cyber operations. But yeah, there were a lot of discussions of all these type of decisions from years back. This is not something new, as some people might believe. And this is an interesting analysis from Mountain Tactical Institute by Charlie Bosman. designating Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, implications and challenges. And it's a very interesting analysis from all this epidemic of fentanyl in the United States and all these problems. And of course, the cartel violence in Mexico, which is awful. It's very awful. And these cartels in Mexico have led to an astounding increase in violence, most dramatically viewed by the homicide rate. The Mexico Peace Index found that the national organized crime rate has risen 64.2% in the past years. Homicides related to organized crime have taken over 20,000 lives annually for the past 5 years, and total annual homicides average approximately 35,000 in the same time frame. And yeah, the numbers are crazy. Corruption is rampant amongst Mexican governmental entities that will serve as the front line of anti-trafficking efforts. Sadly, very sadly, but many of these issues are very awful. Law enforcement, the judicial system, the prison system, and the political system are regarded as compromised by cartel corruption efforts. Of course, we see this many times even in the news. Bribery is commonplace, and both local and national police forces were considered so tainted in the fight against the cartels that it was put into the hands of the Mexican military, where there have also been numerous implications of corruption. Even the former Mexican president Peña Nieto was accused of receiving bribes for the Sinaloa cartel during the U.S. trial of famed drug lord El Chapo. Mexican journalism on the drug trade is inherently risky, leading to the murder of 76 journalists in the country since 2017. This is greater than the total of all Latin American in the same time frame. While reliable statistics on drug addiction and overdoses in Mexico are more challenging to acquire, it has been noted by several organizations that both have spiked in recent years, primarily due to fentanyl. Yeah, it's awful, it's what it says is pretty much what we see every day, and what we kind of see, even if no one says it. We understand that this is probably what is going on, because it's unbelievable that this problem has decades and it is not being solved. I mean, it's unbelievable. But this is even the potential drawbacks. This very interesting analysis. The diplomatic strain, impact on trade and economy, legal and law enforcement complications, impact on immigration, potential escalation of violence, challenges in targeting financial networks. It might not change anything. And yet this is a very important one, and I think the decision of not returning to Mexico many deported criminals, it is a smart one, because you don't want to reinforce these criminal organizations, sending them back all their criminals that are going to probably end up in the streets in no time because of the corruption. I think that was a very smart move, so they don't empower again these terrorists, and they can finally be dismantled and be erased from the face of the earth. And the benefits, of course, I think there will be more benefits than drawbacks. Military styles operation, enhanced surveillance and intelligence, financial and legal measures, targeted sanctions, collaborative international operations. That I think is a very important aspect of this, because it is a global problem. These criminal organizations, sometimes they have roots in many other countries around the world. I mentioned, for example, Spain, that they arrested a police chief because they found that it received bribes apparently from some of these cartels in Mexico. So it's very complicated issue. And of course, I'm not gonna read everything, but it's a very interesting analysis from Mountain Tactical Institute, and this analysis designating Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, implications and challenges by Charlie Bausman. And there are two more that I found that I think they are very interesting. The strategic intelligence in national security measure. It also made an analysis: spies and drugs, Mexican cartels as counterintelligence threat, by Spencer Kolsak, 28th of September of 2015. And of course, this is before they were designated. But of course, this is a very interesting. And here it points. This analysis points out to corruption of not only Mexican officials but U.S. officials as well. So operations against U.S. personnel are not limited to just the Sinaloa cartel, as physical obstacles on the border have become more plentiful. Cartels have turned to exploiting the weak link in the system: people. In recent years, police officers, state troopers, National Guard members, county sheriff, prosecutors, judge, deputy U.S. Marshals, and FBI special agent in charge of the El Paso office have all been found to have connections to Mexican drug organization. I don't know if Donald Trump is aware of all this. Probably he is, but this is something that you cannot unsee or ignore. Maybe you have to address all this, of course, and of course these terrorist organizations could not have gained so much strength inside the US without having inside help. So this is a very interesting analysis, and it puts one example. In one instance, an individual sought employment as a border inspector for the express purpose of bringing drugs into the United States. He eventually pled guilty to importing more than 1,000 kilograms of marijuana and receiving over 5 million in bribe payments. It's insane, 5 million. So this is a very important part of all this problem. Of course, cartel use a variety of methods of recruiting U.S. officials. Most commonly, bribes are the solicitation of they try to use sex as a hook, I guess, to hook people and to corrupt them. Before personnel are recruited, the cartels often engage in extensive background checks and surveillance to identify potential targets. You see, this is insane, but probably they do. Most cartels find it cheaper to pay a few $1,000s to bribe a customs and border protection agent than risk the seizure of drug shipments. Cartels often send attractive agents to seduce and recruit officers. In March 2007, Inspection Officer Richard Elizalde was convicted of conspiring with his lover cartel agent Raquel Arin to bring illegal aliens through his inspection lane at the San Isidro port of entry. So this is a very important part of this analysis that I think is important to keep in mind. And like he says, counterintelligence and counterterrorism. And it's very complicated, but here it poses some ideas. And it's very interesting, but it's old. This analysis is a little bit old, so it's not updated. So maybe many of this information is not updated. So it's just something. I think the most important of all this analysis, considering that it's outdated, 2015 is a long time ago. 10 years ago is a lot of time, but I guess this part cannot be overlooked, even if it is 10 years old. This analysis, you cannot overlook this even today. And that's another I think the important part of this analysis. And this one was interesting. Small Wars Journal, The opinion, of course, is an opinion. The impact of terrorist designation on Mexican cartels by Mahmoud Sengiz. And here's something interesting that I see on this. It says currently 68 groups and organizations are officially designated as terrorists, with the majority being Salafi jihadist terror groups, including affiliates of Al Qaeda and ISIS. The list also features Iran-backed terrorist groups and left-wing revolutionary groups such as Colombia's National Liberation Army ELN, Turkey's Kurdistani Workers' Party PKK, and the Philippines' New People's Army NPA, Trans-Islamic Revolutionary War Corps ERGC is the only state actor included. Notably, the list does not include any drug cartels organized from Latin America. And here is a list. You see this? This is a list. And we have a list of all these organizations and the dates in which they were included. So there's a lot of organizations here. I think there are even branches. It's sad to see, but it's something like branches, like ISIS-DRC, Mozambique, and in many places this organization. And well, there are a lot of them. And this was posted on 27th of January. And yeah, there are a lot of organizations that are already here. Some of them have a lot of years in the list. There are some of them that lasted for a long time, since 1987 until 2022. I mean, there was a long time that they spent in these lists, and yeah, there are a lot of designations that had been made from a long time ago. And of course, this is one of the biggest ones. But yeah, there's a lot of and of course there's a lot of organizations over there. And yeah, this is a very interesting report on opinion. And I think he mentions something here that I never liked it in this country, in Mexico, and I always felt kind of sad to see blooming the so-called something they call narco-culture, and this music and all these movies and all these TV shows. And I was not a big fan of all that. I might have only saw maybe one movie or maybe like one TV series, but I never liked that tendency, that trend to create this culture around these criminals. I mean, I never liked that at all, to be honest. And Sadly, in Mexico, we have there are there are even music, TV shows, you name it. That kind of created this narco culture that I always find very offensive. And hopefully, this will end very soon, and this bad uh, so-called narco culture is no more, because it's very, I think it's offensive for the victims of all these criminals. And it shows lack of respect for the suffering of many people that maybe lost their family members of, or you name it, with these criminals, these terrorists. And yeah, I mean, I knew many people that suffered at the hands of these criminals, these terrorists. And when you hear even some people talking about this in books, or when some journalists, investigative journalists, there are several investigative journalists that have that wrote books when they investigate all these crimes happening at the border and many states that are in the Mexican northern border with the United States. Sometimes when these the victims of these cartels talk about their suffering, how they lost family members, and they suffered violence and fear from these criminals. When you read this, or when you talk with these, when people and they talk to you about these bad experiences they had, and when you read these books that talks about this suffering, this problem in their communities, how they lived it, how they suffered it, and you realize that these criminals are actually terrorists. That's the only word that you can use against those. I don't know if they're even human beings, because some people, I think they lost their humanity, and I don't know, so I think that really some of these people have lost their humanity in themselves. And yeah, I mean, when you read, I'm not gonna say the name of this investigative journalist, but there was an investigative journalist, a female investigative journalist, that even received an award recently for her work. She wrote a book about interview where she puts interviews of all these people, these victims. When you read all the things that they say, that they suffer in the hands of the criminals, you I mean, it's unbelievable, and it's sad to read that reality, and all the pain in people's life, and not only here, but also in America, in the United States of America, and maybe in Canada, in Spain, many other countries. When you see the viciousness of these people, is, I mean, it lets it makes you feel like cold when you read, when do you hear these testimonies of these people talking about, when you read in the books that they sometimes they share their experiences in an anonymous way. They don't put their names, they share it, but remain anonymous. And well, it's unbelievable, and makes you feel like shivers in you, like from all the viciousness that you sometimes find in these people. And yeah, I mean, it's awful. And to think about the number of people that have died in Mexico and in the United States is triple times unbelievable, and you don't have words to 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 express all the the awfulness of all that situation. But well, I just wanted to practice a little bit of English. Today I haven't been doing in English videos. I was only speaking in Spanish, but sometimes I want to keep practicing, because if you don't use a language, you tend to lose it, to forget words and stuff. You It is like a metal that rusts when you don't use it and it's water, and it rusts. It rusts. I feel like learning another language and not using it kind of feels rusty. Like you cannot speak it as well as you might like. For me, this is an exercise to keeping my flow in, in speaking English. And yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since I haven't been speaking English very frequently. I think that I don't speak that often. So in the past I used to speak it a lot because of some jobs that I had and people that I knew, and I used to talk to them more often than now. I think that I have been like 4 years, like 4 years that I have not been speaking anything in English, and I feel a little bit rusty that in that sense. And sometimes I even forget one or two words, and I think that's not a good thing. So that's why I want to keep this exercise. So I rem- I, man, I can keep my flow in talking in English and not struggling. I don't like to struggle, but I have been learning other languages, so maybe that's a little bit of an issue. Because I don't use this language as much as I used to, and now I am learning another languages, so maybe my brain gets confused with so many so many words in many languages that I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Well, it's 11:30 p.m. of Tuesday, 11th of February, and well, it's late, so I'm gonna finish this live stream 11:30 at night. So I think it's a good time to finish and go to sleep, because sometimes I find I find a little bit difficulty to get to sleep early, and I don't know exactly why, but well, whatever. If anyone is watching this, well, I hope that this information may be useful, maybe useful for you, or you might find it interesting, or I mean, I hope that people don't get bored by watching this. I just put some information that I feel like I have some interest in them, and I just gave some follow-ups to some things that I'm interested, and that's all there is to it. There is not much more about this than just that, as simple as that. And if anyone takes the time to watch this, I hope you don't get bored, because I'm not making this to entertain anyone. I'm just putting this follow up of information, that's all. And maybe sometimes I speak about this critical thinking, about this or that, because sometimes I see that people is watching, so I try to put some information that is useful, promote critical thinking, to promote the think for yourself, the promote be yourself, be real. I always say keeping it real. Feel comfortable on your own skin. Don't try to pretend to be someone you're not. Just be yourself, and learn to love yourself as just who you are, with your flaws and with your attributes, with your strength and your weaknesses. and free your mind, I guess. Free your mind from all these traps from the mind. I have been speaking in Spanish about the traps of the mind, and of course one of the biggest traps that we see in Western civilization is the dichotomic, the dualistic mind trap, that everything is white or black, or everything is up and down, and that mentality is everything is right or wrong, everything is good or bad, everything is night or day, and that is a trap of your mind. That is a trap from of your mind. It is a prison for your mind, and I think we have been raised to believe and fall into this trap, and to live like that, because we see many of these situations happening, good or bad, right or wrong, left or right, Republican and Democrats and Republicans, pro-abortion, anti-abortion, and you name it, the devil and God. There is no middle ground, and I have been speaking about this in Spanish a lot, because I think this is a very, 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 very important thing that we need to address in Western civilization. Because not because I'm not going to say it is bad, because that's the trap. It's bad, it's good, it's not, it doesn't matter. It's not because it's not about it is bad or wrong, or bad or good. It's a problem because it creates conflicts within your mind. So when you start to think about that is wrong, this is right, he's wrong, he's thinking, okay, no, he's mistaken, he doesn't understand, he understands. And that's the trap, that's the conflict, because he creates an aversion, an enemy that does not exist. Well, he does not believe in God the way I do. He must be confused by the devil. He must be the devil. He's Satan himself. He's the Antichrist. So that is a trap. And I think, sadly, that many cults and even some Christian religions fall into this trap, or they even promote the trap for convenience, because they want money, 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 and because they want to keep people with fear in check in the cult. And they want to keep members. Why members? Because it's money. So that's the trap of this mind trick, this mind trap that Western civilization is suffering. And I believe, and I'm convinced, that many conflicts in humanity, human history, many conflicts of humanity have been created by this mindset, this conflictive and toxic mindset, where I am absolutely right and I am hold the absolute truth, and if other people doesn't think like me, they are wrong. They are not smart. They haven't figured out things. They haven't studied enough, and that's part of this big trap. And it's very difficult to break through, because when you are raised into this mindset, this trap, you automatically, your subconscious goes into right, wrong, good or bad, and it is in a subconscious level. So breaking through this programmation is complicated. And I said it in Spanish. Jesus Christ did not teach or taught this mindset. Is not from God. This mindset of A or C, or good or bad or right or wrong, that does not come. I think that does not come from uh, the Bible. I think, because when you read the Bible, when you read the Old Testament, I don't think I have ever read in the entire book this right or wrong, or these good and bad situations. I think it does not exist in the Old Testament, and I think that is a trap of the mind. I think that's a mindset that it is dangerous by itself, because it leads you to contention, to fight, to conflict, to create an inexistent enemies. So everyone should choose for themselves, but I will say that if anyone analyzed what I'm saying, is going to find out that it is very conflictive, because it puts you in a positions when you have to only take two places, two sides. There is no more sides, only two. And if you're not with me, you're against me, and that is not the way God works. That's not the way that God uh, taught us through Jesus Christ. I think Jesus Christ show us the way to go back to the Father, to God. Only I don't recall even hearing Jesus Christ talking about right or wrong, good or bad. I only remember him talking about doing things that God likes. God likes this, so you have to I don't know how to say it in English. You have to be godlike. I guess that's the word he used when he prayed to the Father. I hope that they are perfect as you and me that are thou art in heaven. And I think the message was that we should be like him. We should follow him. We should do what he invited us to do. And I don't remember he fighting good or wrong, right or bad, and I don't even recall Jesus Christ fighting with the Pharisees. I don't recall him saying, "No, you're right or wrong, good or wrong, bad, this and that." No, I only remember Jesus just calling out their mistakes. You know, I think that Jesus only called out their mistakes so they could see them and change them. But he did not went into this fight with the Pharisees and this right or wrong, good or bad, and this and that. This mindset, I don't think comes from Jesus. I don't think this mindset of dualistic minds, of dichotomic mind, it does not come from Jesus. And that is a trap. And that is a manipulation, I think. But well, in Spanish, I have been speaking about this many days. And the more you think about it, the more you realize how the trap works, and how this trap puts you in a conflict. And God does not put you in conflict. God frees your soul, frees. God gives you freedom, not conflict or internal conflict. And I don't think God talks about choice either. I don't remember Jesus Christ talking about choices. I think Jesus Christ said, "Do as I do." Just do as I do. He didn't say choose. That is another trap. Choose, I think. And it all comes down to follow Jesus Christ's example, what he told us to do, and not entering into this trap of these manipulators that they try to put you in a very subtle way into the trap of me versus them, right versus wrong, good or bad, white and black, sweet and bitter. That is the trap. And when you see that, when you read that in whatever description they say it is sacred, you need to be careful, because they are going to be manipulating you, and that is not the message that God taught. And if you read the Bible, really read the Bible, you don't find that. You don't find that narrative. You don't find that type of language. It's very, very rare. That comes from people, not from God. You might say now maybe the Apostle Paul says something, and maybe Moses says something about this and that, but that does not come from God. And God taught a very simple message through Jesus. Do as I say, do it for yourself, experience it for yourself, the message, and that message is going to lead you back to God. That's it. There is no right or wrong, good or bad, this and that, then bam, bam, bam. That's that trap. And that is the prison that these manipulators want to put into your mind. And I don't think that was the message that Jesus taught. But read it in the Bible, analyze it in the Bible, read it, and you will see what I'm saying. And if you read it in the Bible and you read what Jesus said and you read what happened to Jesus, you are going to find out that the Pharisees, those Pharisees that Jesus called hypocrites, those were the people that thought right, wrong, good or bad. And they tried to put this conflict in Jesus. They were the conflictive ones, the Pharisees, because they had this mindset. I have the absolute truth, and because I know the absolute truth, he is wrong. Jesus is wrong. He's the devil. I have even heard some Christian people say, no, he's the Antichrist, and he's deceived by the devil, by Satan. And it's the exact same narrative that the Pharisees used against Jesus. He must be Beelzebub because he is drawing away spirits from this possessed person, so he must be using power from the devil to expel demons. That was the narrative that the Pharisees used. And Jesus Christ said, no house divided in itself, it shall remain. Every house divided shall fall. So Jesus said, he said that he was not expelling demons because of the power of the devil, because of the power of God. And this divisive mindset, this conflictive mindset, if you read the Bible, comes from the Pharisees. They wanted to put an aversion and they wanted to put enemy. They wanted to put Jesus against the Romans, and they always try to put these traps. And they always say, no, he cannot be the anointed one, the Savior, because the Savior was supposed to be born in Bethlehem, and he was born in Nazareth. So they had this conflictive mindset where they felt that they had the absolute truth. So because they knew better, the other one was wrong. So they had to teach the other guy a lesson, or to show them that they were wrong. And they say that he was the devil, and because of the devil he made all those things. They were the conflictive ones, not Jesus. And that mindset, when some people say, no, I have my Bible, I cannot read more Bible, no, I'm gonna talk with my leader, and he's going to say me blah blah blah. Well, like some people react when they hear other religions. No, I have my Bible, and this conflict comes from this mindset. When you're not thinking for yourself, when you don't think for yourself, you find these conflicts. Because when you experience for yourself the Word of God, I believe that you will not have this internal conflict that the version of what I believe is the right version. You should read better. That conflict does not come from God. Of course, does not come from God. And that aversion, that enmity, that he's different, so he must be a bad person. That is this trap. And I think that we fail to understand the message of God when we fall into this trap. That means that we are not understanding what God taught, because even the apostle Paul said, I think it was in Corinthians, examine everything, analyze everything, and keep what it is good. Like, read about everything, examine everything, analyze everything, and and keep what it is good. So even the apostle Paul invited to be open about things, about anything, about all possibilities. Even if someone believes in God in a different way, you need to, Apostle Paul say, talk to them, analyze everything, examine everything, and keep with that which is good. He didn't say, no, don't talk with those people because they're the devil, and I think that that's the essence of the message. And the weakness of the man is the part that leads us through conflict, but that has nothing to do with God. And you might even say, no, well, the apostle Paul and Peter fought because they thought different. Well, that's the weakness of men. That has nothing to do with God. And what did Jesus did when Peter chopped the guy's ear when he was arresting him? Jesus, he was about to arrest Jesus, and Peter took his sword and chopped the guy's ear. And what did Jesus say? Jesus say, no, keep your sword down. Keep your sword down, because if you injure anyone or you kill by the sword, you're going to die by the sword. And he commanded him to put the sword down, and Jesus healed the guy's ear. He put his hand on the guy's ear, on the centurion's ear, and healed the guy's ear. That's what Jesus taught. So I think that I have seen many Christians that fall into this conflict, and I believe that when they see this internal conflict, well, they should think about Jesus healing the guy's ear. It's not about fighting who is right, who is wrong, who holds the truth, who does not have the truth, who is mistaken and who is okay. It's not that what Jesus taught. It's not that the message from God. And when we say, no, this is our different, and I'm better because of this or not, that's a mistake. That's another mistake. But this comes from this mindset, this divisive mindset, this dualistic mindset, this dichotomic mindset, whatever you want to call it, where everything has to be right or wrong, good or bad, Democrats or Republicans, blue or green, or morning and night. And even the system fuels this trap, where it's up for everyone to, if it's up to every person by themselves to find their own truth, their own reflections from themselves. But I believe that might be leading to some conflicts at the international level. For example, in the Middle East, with some countries over there, because some persons believe that they are right or the others are wrong. They have the right, the other ones have no right to be there, and this is something that some people might find it conflictive, and maybe some religious people find this conflict. And well, of course, it's a trap. Life is much more than just black and white. There's a lot of in between. There's a lot of in between the night and day. There's a lot of in between of who's right, who's wrong. There's no conception of right or wrong. There's a lot of levels, on all this. But when you have in your mind a concept of what all the things that are right and all the things that are wrong, you're going to live in a conflict your whole life. I believe that is going to be a very incomplete life, because we are not able to experience life as it is. We just limit ourselves to a very small piece of life. This what is right, and we limit what life is about, I guess, and I think life is very complex. It's very unique for each one of us. And yes, of course, I'm saying that people should do whatever they want. We should have, of course, some rules, but I'm talking about the inner experience. That's what I'm talking about. And I say it because sometimes when I was young, I found myself in this trap. When I was educated in these Catholic schools, when I was growing up in this, when I was very young, I found this very conflictive within myself. Who's right, who's wrong, who's good, who's bad, and each person has to find their own meaning of life. I mean, that's very personal, but I see many people at the international level in many countries creating very serious problems because they think they're right, because they think they hold the absolute truth. That's where I'm going with this, because they think they feel empowered, entitled to something because someone says, or some book says this, or like other text says that, and they feel entitled. So they go to this mindset: I am right and the other guy is wrong, and he's going to find out how wrong it is, because in this text says this, and it has to be how I think it has to be. There's no other middle ground. There's no other reality. Just what I think it is. What I fool myself to be the absolute truth. And there's no room for other options, opinions. And that's what's happening in the Middle East. There's no room for more opinions, for more options, for other realities, for anything else. There's no other options in their minds. It only has one option, and it has to be that, or it's nothing. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. And I believe that in the Middle East, the problem that we're seeing over there is because of that mindset and that kind of mind traps. And that happened even maybe with the Nazi, no? The Nazis believed that they were the superior race and everyone was inferior. So they hold the absolute truth of all things how they should be. And everything had to be the way they wanted to be. Everyone was wrong, everyone was the enemy. Because they did not share our blood, or whatever you want to call it, or bloodline, or whatever you want to call it, no? They're not white, they're not perfect, so we know better. And all the ethnic cleansing that happening with the Nazis, because they thought they were superior, that they knew better. So everyone has to move away because they were the chosen human beings in the universe. And that's the mindset, the same mindset. And we saw what happened with World War II. And some people even say that the Nazis had a cult, an occultism, some that maybe fueled this mindset. Some cult, or some believed in some occultism, something like that. Some people say that those things were involved with the Nazis, and that explained their mindset. This trap. I know better, so and they don't know better, so they have to move away, and that was the situation happening probably with that group of people, with the Nazis, right, and all these monstrosities that they did. And if you go back in time, maybe you find the witch hunt, the Maleus Maleficarum, so that cursed book, because they knew better, that sorcery, that witchcraft was from the devil, and it has to be destroyed. I mean, it was the mindset, and how many people died, how lack of respect of human dignity and life happened during those times, the witch hunt. And if you go back in time, maybe you find the Crusades, maybe, and if you go back in time, maybe you find the wars for the Jerusalem. And if you keep back so far and so far, maybe you find more examples and more examples. And it is not about who is right or wrong, it's about focusing on the conflicts that maybe this mindset is have created in the course of our times. And if it is correlated, of course, if it's correlated, all this what I'm saying with reality, maybe it's a big problem. It might be a big problem if we find some correlation to all this what I'm saying. If part of what I'm saying is the root of all these problems that we have been living in 2,000 years, it seems to be the problem with the Pharisees and Jesus Christ, because they didn't want to lose their privileges. They knew better, so Jesus had to go, even if he was the heir by bloodline, and so they knew better. So they and this mindset, because they were very close-minded. The Pharisees were very close-minded. It has to be exactly as the text said. There were no other possibilities. So there was only exactly as the text says, or there's nothing. That was their mistake. There was exactly as the text on the Bible says, or is wrong. There's no middle ground, and that's what led the Pharisees to crucify Jesus, because they were convinced that the text said Bethlehem. I know when Jesus was born in Nazareth, right? So the text said Bethlehem. It could not be anything else. They didn't even care in investigating where the Jesus actually was born. They were so into this mindset that they said it is not Jesus, because he was born in Nazareth, and the text said in Bethlehem. So there's no middle ground. There's no middle ground. There was no middle ground for the Pharisees, so they crucified Jesus Christ even if he was the Savior, because of this mindset. And those guys were the conflicted ones, were the guys that were making all this trouble with Rome because of Jesus. It was not Jesus making problems, it was these Pharisees that hold this mindset. That was the real problem. That's where the problem really lies. And still, today, the same issue remains. And each is up to every person. Each person has to come to their own conclusion. But I'm just putting this piece of information. That was the reason why and it begs the question, how many more conflicts in the history of humanity have we ever had because of this type of problems, this type of mindset? Or today, well, I'm gonna finish with that. I think it's a very important reflection in terms of religion or cults or mindset, because it is not tied to religion. This mindset might be even political, like the Nazis, a political group with this problem, this mindset, very conflictive, and we saw what happened with the Nazis and the world. And it's something that many people need to analyze and reflect upon and think about it. Will there be any correlation with this and that? Could many conflicts in the history of humankind be related to that mindset? We cannot overlook the fact that was the very, very, very key core issue that led the Pharisees to crucify Jesus. Of course, there were other factors, because they didn't want to lose their privileges. They didn't want to have a king, because Jesus was supposed to be the king. They didn't want to lose their privileges. But many were into this mindset, and today we still have this rejection of Jesus Christ in some communities, because it has to be exactly as it says here. There's no middle ground. There cannot be other possibility that he fled when he was a child to save his life because he was being persecuted. There was no that possibility. There could not be that possibility that he fled to from his birthplace, and these situations could not happen, simply could not happen in their minds. What happened to Jesus, why he had to flee, and why he was born in Bethlehem, and they say that he was from Nazareth. Well, then that problem, that that mind so closed that it's impossible to to interact with, to 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 reason with. A very closed mindset is impossible to reason with because they're so convinced about what they know is the absolute truth. It cannot be different from that. So they don't listen to anything else. They don't want to listen to anything else. So is that really what Jesus taught? Isn't that exactly the the danger that the Bible talks us about? I mean, I think the Bible is a powerful teaching and a warning on how dangerous that kind of mindset could be. I think the Bible is the opposite. I think the Bible shows us what happened with Jesus, so we can have a warning, a strong warning of this type of mindset that where we cannot accept other possibilities because what we know, believe is the whole and the absolute truth and nothing but the truth and there's nothing else. I think the Bible is a big warning against this mindset, and it is very clearly portrayed with what happened with the Pharisees and Jesus Christ, and how this mindset was the key, the core of the problem. And of course they were corrupted and they didn't want to lose the privileges, so they did not want to recognize Jesus as the true heir of this kingdom of the Jews. But of course the problem the fact that the problem remains where there are people that do not accept Jesus as the savior, because that tells you a lot, tells us a lot of what we should be reflecting upon. And I'm not saying who is right or wrong. I'm not saying who is right or wrong, because that is the same trap. If I say no, this is wrong, this is bad, that's the trap. I'm just saying we need to reflect upon that, not to put a label that this is right, this is wrong, that those are wrong, these are the good ones. No, I'm just saying reflect upon that to see if that has something to do, and if it can be dangerous, that mindset in our lives, in wherever. That's all I'm saying. And each person has to come up with their own conclusions, because it is not about what I say, but what you can learn from this reflection for yourself. Because you think it for yourself, you analyze it for yourself, you come to your own conclusion, and that's the most important thing, that you think for yourself and come up with your own conclusion about this. And maybe you agree with me, not because I'm wrong or right, or I have the reason or I don't have the reason, but maybe you agree with me in some parts of what I'm saying, or maybe you recognize that it might be a little bit problematic, this mindset, and that's fine. That's fine. That is perfect, because that is your own conclusion, your conclusion. It is not my conclusion, my point of view. It's your conclusion, and that is what it's all about. Your experience with the Word of God, your conclusions of what I'm saying, your your own processing of this information, and came up with your information, your own. And that's what makes us different, of what makes us unique, how we experience the world in all aspects, not just physically, but in our minds as well. But so well, that's a little bit of something that I wanted to say in English, because I haven't said it in Spanish, and I just wanted to say it in English, so I can keep it like here in this live stream. If anyone is watching this, well, that is a point of view, an opinion, a reflection, something that might lead you to come to more and new knowledge for yourself, or maybe makes you think about some things, maybe makes you a more independent person in your mind. I don't know. I have something that helps to grow people, that people can grow and be better and be use his own mind to come up with their own experience of life and conclusions and interpretations and everything. That's the most important thing. And I'm gonna finish this one because it's late. I'm sorry. Sometimes I just I talk about something and sometimes the time flies, and it is 12/8 of